Imagine a video clip lasting only 28 seconds. It is grainy, silent, and innocuous at first glance. Yet it has become one of the most haunting pieces of footage in the history of the internet. A man in a yellow t-shirt and dark shorts jogs into the frame, but he is not exercising. He is sprinting. He is running for his life. He glances over his shoulder, terror etched into his body language, as if the hounds of hell are snapping at his heels. He runs out of the airport terminal, across a parking lot, scales a high fence topped with barbed wire, and vanishes into a dense forest of sunflowers. That man was Lars Mittank. He has never been seen again. Welcome to DCF Investigations. Today we are not just recounting a missing person case. We are stepping into a labyrinth of paranoia, medical mystery, and inexplicable human behavior. We are examining the disappearance of the man who has been dubbed the most famous missing person on YouTube. This is the comprehensive, exhaustive story of what happened to Lars Mittank in Varna, Bulgaria in the summer of 2014. To understand the tragedy of the ending, we must first understand the normalcy of the beginning. Lars Mittank was not a man who lived on the edge. He was not a criminal, a drug addict, or a drifter. At 28 years old, he was the picture of stability. Living in Itzehoe, in the pristine, orderly region of Schleswig-Holstein, Germany, Lars worked at a power plant. He was described by those who knew him as a grounded, responsible young man. He had a steady job, a close relationship with his parents, particularly his mother, Sandra Mittank, and a solid group of friends from his childhood. He was the kind of person who helped his neighbors, showed up for work on time, and enjoyed the simple pleasures of life, particularly football. He was an avid fan of Werder Bremen, a passion that would, in a twist of fate, play a minor but critical role in the sequence of events leading to his vanishings. In July of 2014, Lars and 5 of his closest friends planned a week-long vacation to the Golden Sands Resort in Bulgaria. For those unfamiliar with the geography of European tourism, Golden Sands is often referred to as the Ballermann of the Balkans. It is a seaside resort town on the Black Sea coast, specifically designed for high-intensity tourism. It is a place of neon lights, cheap alcohol, loud music, and all-night parties. It attracts thousands of young Europeans, particularly Germans, looking to escape the rigors of daily life. It is a place of joy and excess. But like any place that thrives on the loss of inhibition, it has a darker underbelly. The group arrived on Monday, June 30th, 2014. For the first few days, the vacation was idyllic. They spent their time on the beach, swimming in the Black Sea and enjoying the nightlife. Photographs from the beginning of the trip show Lars smiling, relaxed, and enjoying the company of his friends. There were no signs of distress, no indications of mental instability, and no foreshadowing of the darkness that was to come. He was simply a young man on holiday. The turning point came on the night of July 6th, nearly a week into the trip. Lars and his friends were at a bar, watching a football match on television. It wasn't just any match. It was a game involving the World Cup, a time when national and club passions run high. While the exact details of the altercation remain slightly murky due to the chaos of a crowded bar, it is established that Lars got into a verbal disagreement with another group of German tourists. Reports suggest the argument was sparked by football rivalries, specifically involving fans of Bayern Munich, the arch-rivals of Lars's beloved Werder Bremen. What started as banter escalated. Lars was separated from his friends during the confusion. He disappeared from their sight for several hours. When he reunited with them the next morning at the resort, he was not the same. He had a visible injury. He told his friends that he had been beaten up by 4 men hired by the group he had argued with earlier. He claimed they were locals, or perhaps Russians, but the specifics were hazy. The physical evidence, however, was clear. Lars had taken a blow to the head. He was complaining of pain in his ear. Seeking medical attention, Lars visited a local doctor in Varna. The diagnosis was a ruptured eardrum. While painful, a ruptured eardrum is generally not life-threatening. However, for a tourist scheduled to fly home, it presents a significant logistical problem. The doctor explicitly advised Lars that he could not fly. The changes in cabin pressure during ascent and descent could cause severe, permanent damage to his inner ear, potentially leading to total hearing loss or vertigo. He was grounded. This moment is crucial. The isolation begins here. His friends, who were scheduled to fly back to Germany on July 7th, offered to stay with him. They were willing to miss their flights, to take a bus or train back with him, to ensure he wasn't alone. In a decision that has haunted his friends ever since, Lars insisted they leave. He told them he would be fine. He planned to see an ear, nose, and throat specialist, get the necessary treatment or surgery, and follow them home a day or 2 later. Reluctantly, his friends boarded their plane. Lars Mittank was now alone in Varna. After his friends departed, Lars checked out of the resort hotel where they had all stayed and moved into a cheaper, less conspicuous accommodation near the airport, known as the Hotel Color in Varna. It is here, within the walls of this hotel, that the descent into paranoia began. The behavior Lars exhibited on the night of July 7th and the early morning of July 8th is the subject of intense scrutiny. He was no longer the relaxed tourist. He began making a series of erratic, terrifying phone calls and text messages to his mother, Sandra. In these communications, his voice was hushed, frantic, and filled with a primal fear. He told his mother that he was being followed. He claimed that there were people in the hotel trying to kill him. He whispered that he was hiding in the bathroom, afraid to make a sound. At one point, he asked his mother to cancel his credit cards, convinced that the people hunting him were trying to rob him. He sent her a text message asking about his medication. The doctor had prescribed him an antibiotic called Cefuroxime 500 to prevent infection in his ear. Lars, in his paranoid state, became convinced the medication was not what it seemed. He asked his mother to verify the pills, suspecting he was being poisoned or drugged. This sudden onset of persecution mania was completely out of character for a man who had never shown signs of mental illness before. Security cameras at the Hotel Color captured him pacing the hallways, looking over his shoulder, hiding in the shadows, and staring out of windows. He left the hotel in the middle of the night, wandering the streets of Varna before returning. He never slept. The psychological pressure cooker was building. On the morning of July 8th, Lars hailed a taxi to take him to Varna Airport. He was scheduled to see the airport doctor, a Dr. Kostov, to get a final clearance to fly or to receive treatment that would allow him to travel. When he arrived at the airport, witnesses described him as tired and on edge, but relatively composed. He was carrying his luggage, a large backpack and a travel bag. He entered the office of Dr. Kostov. The doctor later recounted the interaction in detail. He stated that Lars seemed nervous and erratic. Dr. Kostov examined the ear and confirmed the rupture. He began to explain the risks of flying and the possibility of a minor surgery to patch the drum. Then, the catalyst occurred. The trigger. A construction worker, simply an employee doing renovations at the airport, walked into the doctor's office. He was wearing a standard uniform, perhaps carrying tools. To a rational mind, this was a mundane interruption. To Lars Mittank, in his heightened state of fear, this was the end. Dr. Kostov reported that Lars began to tremble. He stood up abruptly. He looked at the construction worker, then at the doctor, and shouted, "I don't want to die here. I have to get out of here." This is where the CCTV footage picks up. Lars bolts from the office. He leaves everything behind. His passport, his wallet, his cell phone, and his luggage are all abandoned in the doctor's office. He runs into the main terminal. The cameras track him as he sprints past bewildered travelers. He does not stop to ask for help. He does not look for police. He is in a state of pure flight response. He exits the terminal doors and runs into the parking lot. He is moving with athletic speed, fueled by adrenaline. He reaches the perimeter of the airport grounds, where a fence stands over 2 meters high, topped with barbed wire. Without hesitating, without slowing down to assess the climb, he scales it. He throws himself over the sharp wire, likely injuring himself in the process, and drops down onto the other side. Beyond the fence lay a field of sunflowers, and beyond that, a dense stretch of forest near the A2 highway. The camera watches him run into the sunflowers. He disappears into the yellow and green stalks. And then, silence. That was July 8th, 2014. Since that moment, despite massive manhunts, international media coverage, and the efforts of private investigators, not a single confirmed trace of Lars Mittank has been found. No clothing, no bones, no body. So what happened? To provide an exhaustive analysis, we must dissect the theories, the forensics, and the psychological profiles that define this case. The first and most prevalent theory centers on the head injury. When Lars was struck during the fight at the bar, he suffered a ruptured eardrum. However, it is highly possible he also sustained a traumatic brain injury, or TBI. Specifically, a severe concussion. Concussions are notorious for their delayed and varied symptoms. While some present with nausea or dizziness, others can manifest as confusion, aggression, personality changes, and intense paranoia. If Lars was suffering from a TBI, the stress of being alone in a foreign country, combined with the pain and the inability to fly, could have triggered a psychotic break. The brain, swelling or bruising from the impact, begins to misfire. Reality becomes distorted. A hotel clerk becomes an assassin. A construction worker becomes a hitman. In this state, Lars wasn't running from a real threat. He was running from a hallucination constructed by his own injured brain. We must also consider the medication. Lars was prescribed Cefuroxime 500, a standard cephalosporin antibiotic. While generally safe, every medication has a list of rare potential side effects. In a very small percentage of cases, antibiotics in this class have been linked to acute psychosis, hallucinations, and paranoia, a condition sometimes referred to as antibiotic mania. If Lars had a rare sensitivity to the drug, or if the medication interacted poorly with alcohol still in his system from the vacation, it could have chemically induced the state of terror he was experiencing. His text messages to his mother about the pills suggest he was fixated on them, perhaps intuitively feeling that they were altering his mind. But what if the threat was real? we must explore the theory that Lars was indeed being targeted. The fight at the bar involved rival football fans. But rumors have swirled that the individuals he angered had connections to organized crime or local drug trafficking networks in Varna. Bulgaria, like many nations, has elements of organized crime that operate within tourist hubs. If Lars had inadvertently insulted the wrong person, or if he had witnessed something he shouldn't have during the hours he was missing after the fight, he could have been marked. Supporters of this theory point to his frantic calls. "They are coming to get me. They don't want me to leave." Was he being watched at the hotel Color? Was the construction worker at the airport actually sent to intercept him? It seems improbable that a hitman would corner a target in an airport doctor's office in front of witnesses. But in the world of crime, intimidation tactics can be bizarre. However, if he was being chased, why has no evidence of a pursuer ever been found on the CCTV? The footage shows Lars running alone. No one chases him. This fact heavily weighs against the theory of an active pursuit, unless the pursuers were using psychological warfare, waiting for him outside, or had threatened him in a way that made him believe they were everywhere. Another chilling possibility is the drug mule theory. This theory posits that during the time Lars was separated from his friends, he was coerced into swallowing a package of drugs to smuggle into Germany. This happens in tourist hotspots. If a capsule burst in his stomach, the massive overdose of cocaine or methamphetamines would cause sudden, extreme paranoia, superhuman strength, and a flight response. It would explain the sweating, the erratic behavior, and the dilated pupils often associated with such overdoses. However, autopsy reports usually find these capsules, and since there is no body, we cannot confirm this. Furthermore, Lars had a ruptured eardrum and was told he couldn't fly. A drug trafficking ring would likely not use a mule who was medically grounded. Let us look at the search efforts, which were extensive. In the days following his disappearance, Bulgarian police, assisted by German authorities, used sniffer dogs, drones, and thermal imaging cameras to scour the sunflower fields and the adjacent forest. They found nothing. The area around Varna Airport is not an endless wilderness. It is bordered by highways and villages. It is difficult for a human body to simply vanish in such a semi-populated area without leaving a trace. This lack of physical evidence has led to the new life theory. Did Lars Mittank want to disappear? Did he use the injury and the chaos as a smokescreen to walk away from his life in Germany? While technically possible, investigators and family members find this highly unlikely. Lars had a good job, a loving family, and no history of debt or legal trouble. He left behind his passport, his money, and his phone. To start a new life with absolutely no resources, while suffering from a painful ear injury, is virtually impossible. Moreover, the look of sheer terror on his face in the video is not the look of a man executing a cunning escape plan. It is the look of a man in mortal fear. Over the years, there have been glimmers of hope, all of which have faded into darkness. There have been reported sightings of Lars in various parts of the world. A truck driver claimed to have picked up a hitchhiker resembling Lars in Poland. A homeless man in Brazil was photographed and shared online because of his striking resemblance to Lars. But he was later identified as a missing Canadian man. In Germany, people have reported seeing him in train stations or shelters. Each lead has been investigated by the family and private detectives, and each has turned out to be a case of mistaken identity. The most heartbreaking aspect of this case is the endurance of Sandra Mittank. For over a decade, she has kept the search alive. She manages the Find Lars Mittank Facebook page, which has tens of thousands of followers. She has spent her savings on private investigators. She appears on television shows, pleading for information. She believes that Lars could still be alive, perhaps suffering from amnesia. The amnesia theory is a thread that many cling to. If Lars suffered a severe head injury and then ran into the forest, he could have collapsed and woken up with no memory of who he was. This is known as dissociative fugue. It is rare, but it happens. He could be living as a homeless person in Bulgaria or a neighboring country, unaware that a mother in Germany is waiting for him. The winters in Bulgaria are harsh, however, and survival on the streets for 10 years without coming to the attention of authorities is statistically improbable, though not impossible. We must also discuss the role of the internet in this case. The CCTV footage went viral, turning Lars into a figure of digital folklore. While this has raised awareness, it has also attracted internet trolls, false leads, and conspiracy theorists who muddy the waters. People analyze every pixel of the video, claiming to see shadows of gunmen or strange symbols. This noise makes the job of genuine investigators even harder. As we analyze the geography of his escape, we realize the sunflower field he entered was vast, but eventually it leads to the A2 highway. One hypothesis is that Lars, in his delirious state, ran onto the highway and was struck by a vehicle. The driver, fearing legal repercussions or perhaps being involved in illegal activity themselves, could have disposed of the body to cover up the accident. This would explain the total lack of remains in the search area. It is a grim, pragmatic theory that bypasses the complex conspiracies for a simple, tragic hit and run. Another geographical possibility involves the deep, unused wells and agricultural cisterns that dot the rural landscape of Bulgaria. If Lars was running blindly through the fields, he could have fallen into an uncovered well. His body would be concealed, potentially forever, unless the specific well was checked. The vegetation in that region is dense and thorny. A body could remain hidden in the undergrowth just meters away from a search party. Let's return to the psychological profile. We cannot rule out the onset of schizophrenia. The late 20s are a common age for the first severe manifestation of schizophrenic symptoms in men. The stress of the travel, the fight, and the injury could have precipitated a dormant condition. In this scenario, the enemies were entirely internal. The tragedy here is that if he had just been restrained and treated, he might be living a normal life today. Instead, his mind drove him into the wilderness. Today, the case remains open. The German authorities continue to classify it as a missing persons case, not a murder investigation, although homicide has not been ruled out. The file sits on a desk, growing thicker with debunked sightings, but thinner on actionable leads. The hotel color has been renovated. The airport has changed, but the fence remains, a silent witness to the last known seconds of Lars Mittank's life in civilization. To summarize the facts as we know them, a healthy young man goes on vacation. He gets into a fight. He suffers an ear injury. He becomes paranoid. He visits a doctor. He sees a construction worker. He runs. he vanishes. It is a sequence of events that defies logic, yet it happened. The terror in his eyes was real. Whether the threat was external or internal, Lars Mittank believed he was running from death. Now, I turn this over to you. We have dissected the timeline, the medical records, and the theories. Do you believe Lars was the victim of a crime that has been perfectly covered up? Was he a victim of his own mind, betrayed by a brain injury or a reaction to medication? Or is he still out there, a man without a name, wandering the streets of Europe? This has been a DCF Investigations deep dive. The world is full of shadows, and sometimes people step into them and never step back out. If you have any information regarding the disappearance of Lars Mittank, please contact the authorities or the official Find Lars Mittank page. Before you go, I want you to answer a question in the comments, one that requires you to put yourself in that doctor's office. If you were Dr. Kostov, and a patient sprinted out of your office, leaving their passport and life behind, what would you have done differently in those first crucial minutes? Your perspective might just shed light on how we handle mental health crises in public spaces. Stay vigilant. Stay curious. And remember, the truth is often stranger than fiction. This is DCF Investigations, signing off.